Hello, everybody, my tarot buddies. This is Dina with The Love Divine, and it's been a couple days since I've come to you with one of my card explanations, lessons, deep dives, whatever we're going to call it. And I should have known as soon as I decided that I was going to do one of these every single day, and I was going to have a new one coming out every day and never miss one. That should have been my first indication that I wouldn't do that. The other day I ended up doing a long reading that's on my channel, the Fire and Ice reading, and I just ended up getting too tired and kind of just needed a rest that day. And then I didn't do another card lesson the next day either because, I don't know, just because. But I'm back with a new card lesson, and today it's the Death card. And this actually, believe it or not, is one of my favorite cards in the tarot. And you're about to find out why. So let me see if I can figure out how to show you this so you can actually see the whole card at one time. It's probably going to be a little bit more shaky. So I deliberately used the Death card from the Halloween Tarot deck because this is pretty much like the most cheerful Death card that you're ever going to see. It's number 13 in the tarot, which is my favorite number anyway. And you can see on this card, it's got many of the traditional symbols of death. For one thing, the main figure here is a skeleton. And we all probably associate skeletons with death to some degree. There's what looks like a vulture perched over here on the fence. There's this guy. There's a little rat here, which is traditionally associated with graves and death and, you know, all those fun gothy things that I love. There's an ankh, on the fence, kind of neat little inclusion there. Shout out to ancient Egypt. The ankh is the symbol of everlasting life, but it's also used in funeral services. It can indicate death as well. It's more like the symbol of, I guess, the cycle of life and death. And then, according to the ancient Egyptians, the cycle of rebirth as well. And then, gosh, there's so much cool symbolism in these cards. And then down here, there's the Death's Head Moth, which I think is really super cool that they included. And I believe this is supposed to be Saturn up here between the barren tree branches or whatever, which is another Saturn Capricorn, another symbol of, I guess, does Saturn rule death? I don't know. Somebody who knows more about astrology, please school me on that because I'm really not an astrologer. People ask me all the time, well, my person is this with their moon in Leo and their Cancer, their Cancer, their sun in this and their Saturn in that, and I'm like, I'm not an astrologer. I'm sorry. You probably know more about it than I do. I'm a tarot reader. So anyway, but I digress. So yeah, so there's a lot of cool symbolism in this. So what does the Death card mean? Well, I'm sure you've heard many, many, many times before, ad nauseum, the Death card does not indicate physical death. We all know that. It doesn't mean the person that you're reading for is going to die, or that you're going to die, or anybody in their family is going to die. I know, but you probably already knew that. That's pretty common knowledge, even among the layperson. I have known tarot readers in my past, usually people who are a bit on the dramatic side, I love them, but they're a little dramatic, will say that there are certain combinations of cards that when they come up in the tarot, they will know that it indicates physical death for the person they're reading for. Now, that is a bold claim, and I can honestly say with no hesitation that there is no combination of tarot cards that I see in a reading and I just say, okay, there's no other interpretation besides physical death. I've never, ever had that. In fact, there aren't even any combinations that I can think of where the likely interpretation is physical death. So I just don't want you guys to have to worry about that, about having to tell somebody that they're going to die or a loved one is going to die, because to me, there are certainly tarot readers who interpret things in different ways, but there's definitely, in my opinion, no card or card combination that indicates that. But what does death indicate? All right, well, it indicates transformation, transition, change in your life. It's a little bit different than the Tower card, because the Tower card to me usually indicates something happening outside of you, some circumstances changing, or something really, really unexpected happens in your life. Whereas the Death card is more like transition within yourself. I mean, it's no accident that he's a skeleton, because this is change coming from within. And this is going to be from the inside out. Now, for me, and I always say this, and I know I'm like a broken record, I always say different tarot cards develop special meanings to different readers. For me, death is usually always positive. Death does not have a negative meaning. And like I said, it's probably my favorite card in the deck. It's ultimately a positive change. Notice, especially in this card, it's very positive because the skeleton, he's watering his pumpkins here. He's giving these guys water and they're all happy. And it means that something is going to change, but something better is going to grow there. It's going to be changed for the good. It's definitely not as jarring and painful as the Tower. And usually it's a change that you kind of initiate. It doesn't really happen before you're ready for it. It's something that you see, whether in your career or your relationship, just anything in your life, that you finally get to the point where you're like, okay, this isn't what I'm wanting. This isn't an ideal situation for me. I'm going to change it now. So that's the nature of death. So of the Death card, rather, not the nature of death. So what does it mean in relationships? Well, it can have a few different meanings. It can mean that you're holding on to something. It can mean you're holding on to a relationship that isn't really good for you anymore. It can be that it's time to let go of that relationship. Now, I can tell you, for my readings, it usually actually does not mean that. It usually doesn't mean the end of the relationship. It means that you are going to break a pattern in the relationship that you have traditionally held. That you and your partner, every couple has their patterns. Every couple has a way of dealing with things. We all know that we've all been with a partner where we have the same fight over and over again. We have the same conflict about the same different things. That's what the pattern is. It indicates that this is finally going to be broken, that you are finally going to be able to move past this and embrace the next challenge. It usually indicates that you're in a turning point in the relationship, and it means that you can now overcome that challenge that you've been facing. It can also mean that there are changes going on in the relationship and you have the choice to resist them or embrace them. Usually it's better to embrace and go with the flow, go with whatever that change is. And if the Death card comes up, like I said, he's watering, he's growing things. It's a change for the better. Now, sometimes the person, I'm actually hearing a little message right now. Sometimes the people in the relationship, when they get the Death card, the people have to ask themselves, am I scared of change am I in this relationship because I'm truly in love with this person? Or am I in it because I'm scared of change and I'm holding on to the past? That can be something that the Death card can indicate. That you're really just at a crossroads and you've got to evaluate. Doesn't mean you're going to break up. Doesn't mean anything like that. But it means that change is coming and you got to kind of, to use a crude phrase, you have to make it happen or get off the pot. So that can be what the Death card means too. If there's something that you're surrounded in stagnant energy, that there's an issue that doesn't get resolved, or this person keeps doing the same thing, or you keep having the same behavior patterns, Death is coming to tell you, okay, time to move on, time to do something different. So it can also mean engagement. It can mean a very, very positive thing for a relationship, and that the person is going to ask you to marry them. That's kind of a lesser known interpretation of Death, but it's very, very true that it might be, you might be getting engaged soon. Sorry, I can't talk. It can also indicate pregnancy, even though I know a lot of us as readers really don't like to read on pregnancy or any kind of medical issue. I know I don't really feel comfortable doing that, and people ask me all the time to either swing a pendulum to tell me if they're pregnant or, if the baby's healthy or anything like that. And I just don't feel really comfortable doing that. I mean, you're better off going down to Walgreens or Duane Reade and getting a test than asking my pendulum if you're pregnant. And I don't want to be responsible for being wrong or being right in that situation. And you know, and obviously health questions, that's not for a tarot reader. That's for a doctor. So yeah, one last thing for love. If you're single and you get the death card, a lot of people see this when they're single and they're like, oh, it means my love life's dead and it's buried and there's no chance of anybody, of being with anybody anytime soon. It's actually the opposite of that. If you're single or you're in separation with your person, there's no chance of getting back together anytime soon, it means new love is coming for you. It means someone new, completely different, that you've never met before, who you've never met before, rather. I'm an English teacher. I should know the difference. It just means that somebody who you weren't expecting, not your typical person, is going to be coming on the scene and is very interested in you. I chose a couple of crystals here. I chose my amethyst, which is a little bit darker than a normal amethyst. It is dyed. So I chose my dyed amethyst and my smoky quartz here to represent the death card, to complement the death card rather. And then I've got this little guy, which is another smoky quartz point, much darker. And yeah, put that right there to hold it up. And yeah, I love this little smoky quartz. It reminds me of a little castle or a little tower or something. It's so like dark and mysterious. But yeah, that's a pretty good angle of the death card. If we can just get it to stay there. Come on, stay. Yeah, I'll finally get it right, and then it'll be time for me to flip it over to do the reversal. Ooh, this is going to be a long one. So yeah, death has a lot of nuances for different situations. Now for money, death is also not a bad card, but it just means don't be too dependent. This is money and career, really. It means just don't be too dependent on the situation you're in right now, especially if it's a job that you're not completely satisfied with, that you kind of sit there and fantasize during the day of getting out of, or you're looking at the Indeed.com, you're looking at want ads during the day. If this is a job that you know you're going to want to leave sooner rather than later, it's the appearance of this card indicates that you're right. You should be thinking about getting out of there. I think we've all been in that job that it's just like a really toxic environment, and you know it's kind of getting worse and worse. I mean, I was definitely in a situation like that with my last job, the last school where I worked, and leave it to me to get personal and spill the tea during my tarot lesson. But I was just telling somebody the other day that, we were in a situation where our boss would if anybody disagreed with her in a meeting, she would start shaking and crying, and the atmosphere in the room just got so tense with everybody looking at each other what do we do? And it was just such a toxic, crazy environment. And at the time, it's you're that frog in the pot of boiling water. It just seems normal to you that these people act like this. And then later, once you're out of the situation, you're that was crazy. You know what? That was insane that these people were doing this in a professional environment. But yeah, so after that extremely long tale of my professional life, so that just that is a situation where the death card might have come up for me and told me, yeah, it's Dina, it's time to start looking for something else. It's time to pursue your passions and see what's calling out to you, and start a tarot channel and a tarot Facebook group, which I do have, by the way, guys. The Love Divine on Facebook is our group, so please feel free to join that. And it's the Love Divine Tarot on Instagram, which I'll put in the notes. But anyway, I digress. I digressed really bad on that one. But yeah, just if the death card comes up, it means that the career change that you're anticipating for yourself is something that you need to aggressively pursue. It's needed, and it's a good change in your life. Health, people think that the death card, especially if they're asking about health, they're like, oh, this must be really bad when the death card comes up because I'm asking about health. No, not at all. All it indicates is that you need to make some changes, just get healthier in general, but it doesn't mean you're in bad health now. It just means make some changes, start exercising more, start meditating, tweak your diet a little bit. If you're doing something that might not be 100% working for you, then go ahead and tweak that a little bit. But it doesn't indicate anything's wrong. It just means that it's a good time for change for you, and any of the changes you make will be positive. Now the reverse. What does the reverse of the Death card mean? Simply that change is needed and you're resisting it. Remember that job I told you about? Yeah, the one I can't shut up about. No, it just means that you've been in a situation too long that has become stagnant. That's become harmful to you in some way. That's become less than ideal for you, and you're resisting that change. So, Death card in reverse just calls to you to examine. Why are you resisting? What are you afraid of? And what's the worst that can happen if you just go ahead and aggressively pursue that change to manifest the situation that you want, a more positive situation for yourself. So yeah, if you see it in reverse, it just means, you know, you're resisting. Maybe you make take steps to let go of that resistance to whatever the needed change is. And usually when this comes up, you know exactly what the change is. You already know what it is when the Death card comes up. Where something like the Tower, that's more of a take you by surprise card. Whereas Death, you know very well what the change that you're going to need is. And you just have to start taking steps to implement it. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. I'm again going back to my schedule, God's willing, of every day. And we'll have a new one tomorrow. Thank you, and see you guys soon.